I'm Davine Joy Randolph, and you're listening to You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
Hello there.
Hey, baby cakes. Guess what? We're in the same room today.
Can you even believe it?
Ooh, what a thrill. Welcome back to another episode of You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
I am Damien.
I am Ann, and it's a thrill to be sitting here. Ronette, the intern, is chewing on a fox. We're having glasses of water out of Muppet glasses, aforementioned. And Damien, you're looking at me like you have something exciting.
I wish I had something exciting to tell you. I really do. I was just scrolling here through my phone.
I have something to tell you that I put in the show notes, but I thought I would save to tell you, which is that Ellen is no longer a vegan, and I'm mad about it.
Oh my God.
I know.
Tell me.
I went to put it in the show notes because, you know, we have this whole theory about vegan people who lose all the sort of like fat and weight around their face when they become vegan, which is what happened to Bill Clinton and Ellen DeGeneres. But now she apparently, after like 10 years of being vegan, she's like back eating fish and maybe poultry, or like maybe fish and dairy only. I was not into it, obviously. And the other piece of news, unrelated, is that Cheryl Burke has filed for divorce from Matthew Lawrence. So the time is now for you.
Oh my God. Have we talked about how much I love Matthew Lawrence on this?
Multiple episodes. He comes up like almost anytime anyone's worked with the Lawrence brother, we find a way to get Matthew Lawrence in the mix.
That's right, because we talked to Elisa Donovan about him. Yeah. I don't know if he came up with Jodie Long, but I'm going to tell you where my infatuation with Matthew Lawrence started, and it's in The Hot Chick. He looks so fucking good. He has the best mouth. I went and looked him up on Instagram, and I was like, honestly, right now I probably have more of a chance than I ever did before, but he looks as the worst that he ever has.
Oh, no. Well, you know,
he still looks good, but, you know, just not...
It's not your memory.
It's not a Hot Chick prime.
It's like 20 years ago. This poor guy. You're holding him to a terrible standard. I really do think you should just, like, send a DM, see what happens. He might be interested. He might be open now.
Everybody's pansexual nowadays.
Yes. He needs a way to get back in the news, and I think this is his way to do it, by dating a man named Damien Bellino.
Here we go. This is it. The podcast will get shut down immediately because I will have to stop talking about actors because I'll be friends with them all. I'm sorry to tell.
Matthew Lawrence is the conduit to all of Hollywood. That's true. Through Matthew Lawrence, you will be meeting all the character actresses.
I won't be able to criticize Mayim Bialik's politics anymore because I'll be like, I'm so sorry, but my brother-in-law worked with her for years. Yeah. It's like I could, off the record.
She comes to Thanksgiving dinner. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, wow.
It's a whole new world for you, honestly.
It truly is.
Folks, if you're new to the show, this is our podcast where, we're in the middle of season 4. We have over 100 episodes, but we have been doing this now for a couple of years where we sit down and shoot the shit with each other about what's going on in our lives, what pop culture we're consuming, and we interview an actress each episode. So welcome to this very show.
I will say that friend of the show, West Coast Story, recently reached out to me and was like, you need to get Jolie Fisher. And I was like, babe, we already had her. Dig back, she's episode, and then I scrolled through and sent a link, which was like way too aggressive. But I just needed to be like, it's here already. So you need to dig into those archives, folks.
Yeah, please scroll back.
Speaking of scrolling back on a calendar, I'm going to say that I was very confused by the date of the release of the movie that we are talking about in this week's episode, which is The Lost City. This is the new romance action film we're super excited about, starring Sandra Bullock and Brad Pitt and Daniel Radcliffe and Channing Tatum, and of course this week's guest, Davine Joy Randolph. And we are so excited for you to hear it because we get into all of that like big action movie stuff, but we really didn't know when it came out because when we talked to Davine, it had not come out yet. And then we were like, I messed up the language, which you will hear, because I was like, it just came out. It's coming out. And then we were like, actually, we went to try to go see it this weekend. And we were like, is it out? So anyway, it comes out tomorrow nationwide. So you were listening to this on Thursday. It's coming out tomorrow on Friday. Please go see it. Support the arts.
It's good to be back in movie theaters, honestly. We were really excited to go see it, but the calendar foiled us. We will be seeing it very soon. I had actually seen Davine in Ghost the Musical years and years ago, courtesy of a friend, and she was so good. But then what was so thrilling was to go back and rediscover some of her more recent TV work and film work. And I have to say, we try to not blow smoke on this podcast. I was knocked out by her talent. Just completely floored by what an incredible actor she is and what she brings to a scene 5 seconds in. You know, sometimes you watch somebody and you're like, I don't know. I saw the movie Belfast. It was terrible. But in the trailer I had seen for Judi Dench's one scene, she had like a 22-second clip. And literally she maybe has a line and a half. And in 22 seconds, it's this incredible like 3-act play. And like, how do you do that? That is what we love to talk about on this podcast is how does someone bring that much depth and life to stage acting, to screen acting? And I just have to say, I think Da'Vine really has it. She brings depth and humor and makes big, bold, sometimes like offbeat, incredible choices, but they're always grounded. And I'm so excited to see The Lost City. It's like a big popcorny Hollywood film, and I'm excited for her to show off her comedic chops. But I have to say, she's also an incredible dramatic actor. I think the sky is the limit for her. So if you don't know her work, get into it, and also get into this week's episode.
You might know her from Dolemite Is My Name,
High Fidelity,
The United States vs. Billie Holiday,
Only Murders in the Building,
The Last O.G,
the original Broadway production of Ghost the Musical,
and her new movie, The Lost City. Okay, we are just pleased as punch to be here today with actress, singer, Tony nominee, Da'Vine Joy Randolph. Da'Vine, thank you for being here with us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're very excited because at the time of this recording, your comedy blockbuster, The Lost City, comes out tomorrow with Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum, Daniel Radcliffe, Brad Pitt, and you. And like, this is very much our kind of movie. Like, we've been waiting for these kinds of movies to return, this like 80s style, romantic action film. It's like a Romancing the Stone, and we are all in.
Yes, absolutely.
Was the whole film shrouded in secrecy, one? And what can you tease to our audience about you and your character? Can you tell us?
Was it shrouded in secrecy? A little bit it was. It was. Definitely what helped is that we filmed outside of the country. We filmed in DR. The entire thing's in DR. So that helped a bit with exclusivity. The Brad Pitt factor was definitely a secret for a long time. And then maybe like days before, no more than a week before, it was like being whispered along set that like Sandra Bullock actually got him to do this role. Yeah, he was my next door neighbor. In my little casita. He was in the next little casita. Best days of my life. And so no, it was kind of low key, but it was great because we were all in this bubble. It was my first workcation ever. Mm-hmm. It was surreal. That last shot where we're all on the beach, that was literally our backyard. Like, the house was here and you just walk out and that's the beach. It looked like the Corona commercial. Like, it was unreal. It was unreal. My character's name is Beth, and she is the publicist, best friend, manager, life coach, all the things, but formerly her publicist for Loretta, who's played by Sandra Bullock. And she is an author of, I say, those trashy but great and makes lots of money, trashy romance novels that you find like in the market, you know, like near the crosswords and the little bit.
It's like a Jane Reed book.
Yes, exactly. That you see like the little old ladies privately whip out on the subway or something. And so I played her publicist, and her husband has passed about 5 or so years, and she's like still slowly getting over the grief. And so I'm trying to help her as a friend, publicist, all the roles that I have of basically, baby girl, you got to snap out of it because we got to make money, things to do, like places to go. And also as a friend, just trying to motivate her to want more, you know what I mean? And move on with her life. Channing Tatum plays like the Fabio, who takes his job extremely seriously, and he can't really distinguish reality from the book, or I guess the model shoot. I don't know. And so my character is very practical and stuff like that. And so basically it gets into that Romancing the Stone territory because she writes something in her book where Harry Potter, aka Daniel Radcliffe, thinks that it's actually like a treasure map. Basically, it reveals where treasure is. And so I finally get her to publish this book. We do this whole book tour, and I know she's a little boring. So I'm like, sex sells, get Channing Tatum. And so it's like her least favorite person in the world, but I know that it's going to get the sales that we need so I can get a new house. And Daniel Radcliffe kidnaps her, and we're then on this crazy ride in the jungle, actual jungle. I think we said we use planes, boats, automobiles, bikes. We did everything but a train in this movie. And it was wild because I did not expect it to be this actiony. And it very much so was. But it's so yummy. It's exactly what you guys are talking about. It's that 80s, early 90s quintessential rom-com that we just love and is so delicious. And what a better person to helm it than like the queen of rom-com, Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, I'm all into it. Were you doing stunts, by the way, in the jungle? Yes, I'm into it.
It's so intense because you're like, oh, I'm in my little casita. And then they're like, yeah, bring it behind to the jungle today at 4 a.m. and we're going to shoot this real quick. Or like all the stuff. I'm in like a Navy boat, and it's like a real Navy boat. No one speaks English. They've got the Coast Guards up there with me. And they were like, you're going to have your Titanic moment. It's epic. It's really unexpectedly epic that we were like, we thought it was going to be just a cute little rom-com. We were going to film in the studio. No, man.
I'm so excited. I hope that you get on that train in the sequel.
Yes, on the train.
Okay, so for our listeners, Davine, in 2011, you landed the role of Oda Mae Brown in the Broadway transfer of Ghost, the musical. Mm-hmm. You've said you actually auditioned for the understudy role, but then were offered the principal role instead. And then before that was even announced, Sharon D. Clarke, who played the role in the West End, suffered a knee injury, so you were asked to replace her in London last minute until your Broadway contract started. So can you describe the insane chaos of that week, basically being thrown into your first big professional job on the West End and then Broadway when the stakes were so high?
It was surreal. And to be really honest with you, first of all, it's beautiful being back in New York. And I was saying it's such a beautiful day today. It gives me the feels, the nostalgic feels. That was one of the craziest things I think I've ever done and experienced. And it's so funny because I do interviews, especially in New York. Of course, you guys bring up Broadway, and I love it. But there's a part of me that I was like, that was so out of this world. How do you match that? Do you know what I mean? Like my first job ever, I'm making my West End debut and Broadway debut. And I got sick the last week of filming in London. But at that point, people were coming to see, to see me do it because they knew I was getting ready to leave. So the production was like, no, ma'am, you can't take off. Sing sick. So I'm on steroids, pumped up on medicine. And then I fly sick, land in JFK. And the very next day we had to do this big promo thing. And that's when Broadway became a bit more industry. And so it was producers and all this stuff. And I landed in JFK. They took me to an ENT and pumped me up with steroids. And
oh my God.
It was the wildest ride ever. But if I'm honest, my life and career has been like that since. It's just been a roller coaster. And I just am like, okay, now we're going this way. Nothing that I've done yet on my resume is anything that I said I wanted. Everything has just come to me. So it's a very wild roller coaster ride, but in the sense of a roller coaster, your stomach drops and you're scared and all these things. And at the same time, it's this crazy, wonderful ride, and it's beautiful chaos. That's what I call it. Gorgeous, beautiful chaos. And I just go with the flow because what else am I going to do? I can't not. I learned very quickly that I was when the thing happened with Ghost, I was like, okay, maybe this is a fluke. No, that's what it's been ever since. But it was magical. It was truly, truly magical to be a part of that. And I'm still looking for the right, perfect project, where it could at least hopefully come close.
We are ready for that.
Yes, I would love that.
We know you're classically trained, and so maybe this is a silly question, but like Whoopi Goldberg's performance in the movie is so iconic, and her line readings are like emblazoned in my brain. Molly, you in danger, girl, just a little gas. Like, was it hard to shake her performance at all when you stepped into Oda or did you come in like without any knowledge of Ghost?
No, and it's funny you say that. I've now done 2 roles that I would say are pretty iconic, and they cemented themselves. The other one being Jack Black in High Fidelity, even though it was a movie.
Totally.
And so, one part of to answer your question, they let me do my thing for the most part. The only thing they were very much so a stickler of, I had to say, Molly, you're in danger, girl, exactly how. And it was really funny because I'm a bit of a rebel. So there would be times where I would be like, I'm not going to say it like that.
You're going to throw it away.
In UK, I'll never forget it. Both times I was like, Molly, you're in danger. Or I'll be like, Molly, you're in danger, girl. When I tell you crickets, one time I got booed. The New York audience and that's a big thing for the UK audience. And I was like, well, gee willikers, you really want to be just like, because every night, right, you say it, everybody's waiting like, oh my God. And they were mad at me like, why would you take that away from me? Why would you do that? But no, I mean,
I'm dead.
Line. No, I had seen it before. I remember for both of them, actually. I saw High Fidelity once, and when I found I was auditioning, I was like, I remember it enough. I'm not watching it again. And then for Ghost, what was interesting about that audition, I think it's because I was young. I just came out of school. I think I was 22? I don't know, 22, 23? And on top of it, it was my first gig ever. So they were testing me. So they made me audition 75% of the role. So I had to be off book 60 pages. So what I would do is in the house while I was rehearsing, I would play the movie, but I'd be like, I don't know, sweeping or something, not sitting and watching her performance, but it was like I was getting off book with the movie. And that, outside of that, that was it. I just let myself do creatively whatever I was going to do.
You play real-life blaxploitation actress Lady Reed in the 2019 biopic Dolemite Is My Name, starring Eddie Murphy. And your performance is so good. You had been working steadily in film and obviously had a Tony nomination, but this was a very high-profile film. Eddie Murphy had been trying to get it made for years. It has this very starry cast that includes like a return of Wesley Snipes, but also Mike Epps and Titus Burgess and Chris Rock and Snoop Dogg and T.I. What was the vibe on that set, since you were a newcomer working opposite mostly men who were like comedians and movie stars and rappers?
Yeah, so HR called me personally and said to me, here's my number. Use it whenever you feel you need to. In the very beginning, before I even came to set, right? So there's a thing that we have to do where it's like, even before #MeToo, you have to you sit through this thing. It's like a full assembly almost type thing. And so HR has to go through the protocol of if no means no and blah, blah, blah. And so for whatever reason, we didn't all do that meeting. We usually all sit in a room. They did it, or maybe this was for a specific reason. They called me on the phone and we did the meeting on the phone. And when the thing was done, it's talking to a phone operator. It's very it sounded like she's reading it. And then she was like, so now I'm done. So I'm just letting you know right now, if you need me, just my number's on, this is my direct text. So I was like,
oh my God,
what am I about to walk into? But then I get there and they were so lovely and they looked out for me and were protective of me. And it was so kind and sweet. And, I think I had a pretty intense audition process. I was auditioning off and on for about a month. And so I had several callbacks. And at first it felt daunting and nerve wracking. I actually got cast. And then he was like, I don't know. And I was like, I'm about to lose this job. And so then they made me come in and do it again. And they were auditioning 2 or 3 other actors. And so at that point, I was just at peace with it. If this is for me, then it's for me. So what was great about it, because people used to always be like, you weren't nervous? I said, I didn't audition 18 times. I know what they want at this point. So what was so great about it, the nerves and everything was gone. And then we could just do the work. But what was so wonderful, everyone, because Eddie usually brings his crew, everybody, same people come along with him, and everyone was just saying like, you got him at such a great and special time. He had some time off, like you were saying. This is a passion project that he had for such a long time. He had originally had hoped and had every intention for his brother to be involved, so it was really close to his heart. So he really looked out for me and passed on so much wisdom. And even when we did press, he made a point of like, whatever press I'm doing, she needs to be there too. And that's huge. And I've never experienced anything on that level before. And on our last day of shooting, we had like a heart to heart. And he just had said like, you've got it and be prepared, because your life is basically, in so many words, your life is about to change. And I was like, oh, thank you, Mr. Murphy. Like, just nervous, shaking, like, okay, thank you.
I know, I'm like crying over Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. And then
very generous, though.
He's very, and I want people to know that, because I don't know how people perceive him, but I know of my experience. And he has an extreme eye for talent and detail. And he's one of the hardest working people I've ever met. But I was floored by just how generous he was.
I love that. I mean, I think we both think he's a great, dramatic actor as well. But like, the film was really well received and was met with a decent amount of Oscar buzz for you and Eddie. Like, how did you process or silence that awards show chatter when the movie came out? Because it really is so good.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much. I think it was very much so unexpected, obviously for me. But in making it, I think, and what I enjoy now, even looking at it, you see, and it comes across very parallel to the movie, the passion and joy and love that we had and put into making this project, and how very special just all these people coming together felt. In regards to the Oscar buzz, luckily I was very busy and bopping around from New York and LA. I was filming Billie Holiday at the time in Montreal. And so the busyness helps me not to be too focused. But then you'll go to like a tastemaker event and there's some old lady that's like, I'm an Academy Award voter. I'm voting for you, honey. You're winning. And you're like, okay, thank you, man. It's weird. It's so weird.
I can't even imagine.
It's so weird. So I think you got to just like, okay, thank you, and just keep it moving. Because then you're just going to be mad because all these people told you they were voting for you and you didn't get nominated. Like the hell? No, you have to just, listen, I'm very young in my career, so I think it's a bit different perspective. I wouldn't dare sit here being like, you better give me and I deserve and but you can't make it about that. I think you have the most likely chance to get in that conversation when you approach the work and dive into the character and give as much to the character while working. The other stuff, truly, I think is luck and chance and timing. You know what I mean? When it's your time, that's going to happen. So I just really focus on keeping the same level, whether I'm doing an art house film or a major blockbuster hit. I want to keep the quality and the standard the same across the board.
So as you mentioned, you play another real life person in Billie Holiday's childhood friend Rosalind and Lee Daniels, the United States' first Billie Holiday. So I have to tell you, Davine, this is a very much like a Damien and Anne film. And what I mean by that, it's like famous people playing famous people. Leslie Jordan has a bouffant. Andre has fake teeth by the end of the film. You're wearing an eye patch and order creme de menthe in Italian. It's like big and theatrical, but also heartbreaking and full of incredible performances.
Yeah.
How were you able, I guess, to like find the tone of that film, but also like invent Rosalind? Like how much was that like real research that you pulled and how much of that was like invented, like that she spoke Italian and had an eye patch? Yeah,
well, I had pictures of Rosalind. I had quite a few pictures, and Andrew knew about this project. I didn't find out about, I think funny enough, I think I was literally in the car with my publicist when my team said to me, this is at TIFF, when we were doing the world premiere of Dolemite, like, oh, they're doing Billie Holiday and they think you would be great for it, go and do it. And then literally 2 weeks later, I went and started filming it. So I didn't have as much time. Andrew had like a year, I think maybe even a year and a half. So being that she loves vintage and all things vintage, she really dove in. And so oftentimes I would ask for materials, and she had some of like Billie's journals or the other people's journals that they had and accounted for. And it was a real woman, and she really did have an eye patch. She had bad cataracts in both eyes, but one was so bad that she was blind. And that was a thing that we made, Lee and I had discussed of like, I said to him immediately, I said, I want that eye patch. If we really doing it, give it to me now, because I wanted it to almost disappear. And people did zero in on it. And it's like fashion, right? Like, you have to wear the clothes. If you let that patch wear you, all we're seeing is that patch. And you just got upstaged by a little old patch. So that was something for me that I was like, put that thing on me right now so we can figure out what's what. And then, we wanted to also show like, back then that was like probably like one of the first glam squads, you know what I mean? Or like entourages. So we wanted to show that sense of like, that was her manicured or made family, and that Miss Lawrence and I were like these two people in her life that were her consistency, and has both like is the sister, the mom, the best friend, you know what I mean, the fashion girl, all those things with her. And so Lee had called me in the middle of filming, and he was like, aren't you a classically trained opera singer? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, so you know foreign languages, right? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, wouldn't it be really fly if while we're in an Italian restaurant, Rosalind just orders food in Italian? And I was like, absolutely, let's do it. And so that scene was just so delicious. I mean, we've got the dog, we've got the furs, like, you can't tell us anything. We've made it. And it was just such a beautiful image, like it goes back to representation, you know what I mean? And like how people really lived, and these people who are unsung heroes and trendsetters that often have not gotten the credit. I just live for stuff like that. Like, let's really tell the truth. Let's really present the truth for what it really was. And so in regards to tone, it wasn't that difficult because, we had all the facts and stuff right there. And also we're wearing period bras, period shoes. Those things hurt, both of them. You know what I mean? The clothes, when you put that stuff on, you sit differently. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You have a cigarette in your mouth, it's different. The different accessories, the gloves, you carry yourself differently. So the clothes had a ton to do with it.
Can I ask, are you the kind of actor that like loves that working like outside in, or do you think you're more like an inside out?
I would say I do the beginning work. I like to know the psychology of the character. And then I would say my way in is what she looks like, hugely. I make vision boards of hairstyle options, what clothes she kind of wears. For Lost City, that was huge. I worked with a costume designer, and we collabed and we designed all that stuff. And I was like, I want an Alexander McQueen like blazer to go with a corset. You know what I mean? I want to give. At first, we were like, do we want to go Pat Benatar? And I was like, yeah, but let's bring it to the early 2000s. Like, it's a whole thing. The blue suit is based off of that infamous Bianca Jagger when she has the cane and she's walking out of the club with, I guess like a country club. Like, I was like, can we do this? And they were like, yes, we just want it in powder blue. I was like, I really don't care what color it is. I just want
this is great.
I'm obsessed.
Do you know what I mean? So like for me,
yeah,
and maybe that's the theater side. I don't know, but and also that I love fashion, but I have to get into her body physically, but first I work on the psychological. And once I get that, then when I'm on stage, that's all before I even start filming. Once I'm then on camera, then I'm like, it's a free for all. It's a playground. And I'm basing it off of what the other actors giving me, what the director wants. And then I'm able to play freely within the boundaries, if that makes sense.
Totally. I can't wait to see that suit.
Oof. Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, Davine, so you were a series regular on the much beloved but gone too soon TV adaptation of High Fidelity, where you played Charisse, an aspiring musician who works in the record shop with her best friend Rob, played by Zoe Kravitz. So, like, one of Charisse's defining traits is her very eclectic music taste, and there's this whole bit in the pilot about, like, she puts on a record, she's like, this is a great record, and it's like Dexy's Midnight Runners, Come On Eileen.
Yeah,
which is like a very funny moment. And so, like, go with me on this. I'm really getting personal with you. But I watched this I binged this whole series during lockdown while I was also DMing with this guy. Like, we binged it together, but alone. Because the soundtrack is such a part of the series, we then ended up, like, making playlists for each other, blah, blah, blah. He then ghosted, whatever. But my question, because it was, like, music was so integral to her, did you get a say in, like, what she was talking about music-wise? Were you making pitches to the writer's room? Like, did you have say in that part of it?
It was definitely a collaborative experience, which I find is always the best way to go. When everyone can understand as a collective, we all can bring, something to it. Obviously, Zoe being a major music head as well. Funny enough, that pilot, and it's so funny because people always talk about it, and it makes me happy because it lets me know we made the right decision. Ironically, we shot the pilot. We knew we were going straight to series. But the way we did is that we shot the pilot first. We had like 2 weeks off, and then we went and steamrolled straight through. As we were finishing up, we kept feeling like, now that we've completed it, there's things that we need to change in this pilot. And Zoe and I had a conversation, and we were like, do we really want the current song that we have? So originally, and for my audition, it was Genuine's Pony.
Oh.
So I come in there and I'm grinding on the book, on the crates, the music crates. I'm grinding on Simon, which makes no damn sense, but okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was, and it was still entertaining, but it was too on the nose and it was too, like, predictable, and something Zoe and I had long talks about it for both of our characters, but I had shared with her, I said, it's really important to me that she is not stereotypical. I do not want her, for example, just to be in the R&B section, right, of the R&B and rap. She's got to have an eclectic taste, as well as I said, I want the same thing for the clothes. She's the one person who's a native. She's born and raised in Crown Heights. That's her neighborhood. But I was like, but New Yorkers, they have all different, they'll dress this way one day and this another. So between the clothes and the music, it was super imperative to me. And so they were going through songs and I was like, I don't know about that one. And then she suggested that one and I was like, let's just see. I don't know if that's going to work. And we played it and it just fell into place and was so, what I love about that opening, there's so much joy. There's so much joy in that character, and you get to see just how free she is and a true artist. That show was so much fun to do, and it was hard. It was very hard. She talked a lot, and she talked very fast, and I didn't want her to be stereotypical, but also childlike, you know what I mean? Like, you're annoying, you know what I mean? Like, or too aggressive. It was this balance. But I take that stuff to heart and very personal. I want the characters to have complexities, you know what I mean? And they have polarities. They're not all good. They can be mean or condescending. And then there could be redeeming qualities about them too. But it was really fun to dig into her. And I think after episode 3 and 4, the studio was finally like, okay, we can surrender this character to you and really let me just go, which is wild because when I watch it now, I'm legit like, who is that person? And that's always the best. But even my mom was like, what are you doing? Who does that? What are you doing? Why are you doing all these gestures? You don't do that. And I'm like, I know. But Charisse does. Charisse does. So that was so much fun to do.
The story goes that like season 2 was actually supposed to position your character as the lead, going through a series of relationships and breakups. So just like total bummer to learn that now it's not happening. Were you privy to that? And like, what do you make of the cancellation? That's fucked up.
Girl, so a fine ass Kingsley did apparently an interview with, I don't know if it was New York Times.
It was LA Times.
Yeah, drop the mic, and I'm reading the paper like, yeah. I knew when we were filming the first one, it was a big thing about like, so they kept saying, they were like, do you want a love interest? And I was like, I don't need to have one. I really think this journey of her music, because that was a big thing too, that they were like, well, you can sing, so just be an artist. I said, no. Let's show the journey of someone being an artist coming into their art. I'm not about to do, this is not Glee. I'm not doing a number every episode. Seriously, I was like, I'm not.
Yeah.
No. We're not doing that. And so I knew they had originally really wanted me to have a love interest just in general. And then I was like, no, I don't think that's it. And so they were like, well, maybe we'll give you an episode. But they never revealed to me that whole next season was supposed to be set up like that. So when he said that, I was like, oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. But you know what? I honestly, I'm going to be really transparent with you guys. I don't know why. To this day, I do not know why we had the ratings. It was expensive, but it's always expensive to film in New York, and especially when you're doing a show with music, because you got to pay, your royalties and stuff like that. But outside of that, I do not know, because we had the audience, we had the people. The only thing I wonder is if it was due to the fact that literally I remember doing the red carpet premiere and maybe 2 weeks later we were shut down. So
that's right. It was
the only thing I can think of that potentially due to COVID and all that and people just being overwhelmed and being like, I don't even know when the world will get back to normal. That they acted, that's all I'm going to give them, because outside of that, I have no clue as to why. Okay,
Divine, you play VC, Tracy Morgan's nemesis turned ally on The Last O.G, and you get to cut him down in season 4 with like really funny lines, but it's eventually revealed that the beef stems from the fact that he had sold crack to your brother when you were kids, and your brother eventually ended up killing himself. This show sort of really runs the gamut, and I love how surprising it is and the sort of balance beam that it walks. Also, we love Anna Maria Horsford, who plays Trey's mom. She's a former guest of this show, and just one of like the most brilliant people.
One of my favorite people in the world.
She's amazing.
I was so pleased when she opened the door and there you were. And I was like, oh, what a treat to see you guys together. She's such an incredible actor.
Yeah.
But I love watching you go toe to toe with Tracy Morgan. Of course, we grew up with him as this sort of goofy, subversive comedian on SNL. Mm-hmm. But you have this huge dramatic scene with him where your relationship is sort of laid bare and your face is completely tear streaked. Can you tell us what was he giving you in that moment and how many takes did you get to sort of work that scene? It's really powerful.
I was in quarantine for another job in Australia, and I got a call from him, and I never met him before, so I don't, Hollywood, how'd you get my number? And he was like, listen, so I called Eddie Murphy, and he told me, you got the juice, and you're going to make me do great things. So I want to take it back to first season, because first season, I really loved what it embodied and it seemed like the fans really attached to it. So he said from jump, he wanted it to be more grounded. He wanted to get into something a bit more grounded and dramatic. You know what I mean? Kind of how Dolemite also had that, the two blended in. He loved that combination. And so I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. And so that was a very collaborative experience where they really were coming to Tracy and I and being like, does this make sense? How can we take this to the next level? We don't want it to be stereotypical. He was very adamant about the community. I guess it's known, it's filmed in his childhood neighborhood. And so that scene, I kind of was to be honest, I was like, what's he about to get? You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to be, and you know what I mean? And you're like, hey, no, what are you about to get? And so literally we did coverage on him first. And I was like, oh, okay, gotcha. Then we did maybe 2 takes of mine, and then he started crying. And I was like, flip the camera right now. I can give you tears, 1 or 2 more takes. That man doesn't cry. Get the footage. And so it was wonderful. And when we finished, it wasn't many takes at all, is basically what I'm saying. It was one of those things where you're like, we got it in 2. It was there. And when we finished, he was like, I haven't cried in years. And he was like, the only other person that's made me cry like that was my grandmother. And he was like, I get it. I get what Eddie was talking about. And he just said, thank you for your generosity. He was like, it felt therapeutic, but you could tell he was not used to being open like that, because the rest of the day he was like, are you okay? We're okay, right? And I was like, yeah, but you're acting and you're feeling things and stuff got open. It's like, I was told him, I was joking, I was like, it's like a therapy session that gets cut short, right? Where you just feel open and exposed and you're like, put me back together. I feel too exposed. Even with everything that he shared, I never thought that moment, that episode and that season was going to take the turn that it did. But it's important because that's real. And that's reality that many people have. So to see that being represented was really good. Very grateful to be a part of it.
It's kind of incredible that Eddie sort of made that connection. And I mean, it is true. You brought the juice. You got Tracy Morgan to cry. I mean, I really recommend this show. Is so good. You're so good in it.
Thank you. I was very flattered. We had at that point worked 2, 3, I don't know, COVID, but 2, 3 years. That was a 2-3 year gap. And to think like they talked and that Eddie was like, if you want someone, that's the one. That meant the world to me.
Okay, Davine. We are entering the part of the show that we call rapid fire. This is so we can get everything else out. And, you know, you can be rapid if you want to, but it's really rapid for us because we're crazy. Okay, so you have an incredible singing voice, and you've said that you sort of fell into acting. Now that you have a bunch of big credits under your belt and you have a bunch of high-profile movies on the horizon, did you start saying no to anything that has you singing? Like, are you opposed to it?
In the beginning, I was.
Yeah.
In the very beginning, I was like, no, ma'am. No, sir. But also, I think being that I got how music ended up taking a pause for me, I was kind of like, I don't really want to touch music right now. And then doing Broadway, being sick, that weird like love-hate with it all because you have no life when you're on Broadway. So I really was like, and also I think coming from music, there was a part of me that I was like, no, I want you to take me seriously. Like I went to school. I went to school for both. But right now I want to focus on acting, and I really wanted people to take me seriously. I did not want to be considered a singer who acts. For me, at that time, I wanted to be an actor who can sing a little bit, right? In their eyes, like that. So I would downplay it, or like, that's why for High Fidelity, I was like, no, I think, because then now we're talking about, I need a whole nother check now. Because that's now 2 characters. But really, like, you know what I mean? Because think about Glee and like even Empire. They then have the singles and they're making money off of the stream. Like I think for people who really, that's a whole nother God-given talent. They need it's not a thing of money, but you know what I mean? Like that, it's not just like, oh yeah, go sing that real quick for us. Thank you so much. So in the beginning, I was that way. Now I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with it, but now I want to get more into a place of I would want to do a biopic of someone who is an entertainer. I've always felt that, and I was like, when the time's right, and like you said, when the jobs start to stack up a little bit more. But then doing Billie Holiday, I was like, okay, yeah, I like this. I enjoy this. So that's now where I'm like, if I'm gonna do it, let's do it. If I have to do little oohs and ahs, you know what I mean, like here and there, like, okay, cool. But I also like to play around and be like, my character can't sing. And it's crazy. I'm like, and what if she can't sing? Let's try that.
But like movie musicals, like Dear Evan Hansen, The Color Purple, Wicked, like you're not interested in that right now.
No, I would rather do less of a musical turned movie, and more of like how Billie Holiday was.
Yeah.
A real woman, like an Ella Fitzgerald, a Mahalia Jackson, a Pearl Bailey. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my God, a Pearl Bailey movie, I would literally die.
Yeah.
She's my favorite. And there's some pictures on the right angle. We favor each other.
Ooh.
We are huge Pearl
Put
Bailey
that
fans.
into the universe. Love Pearl Bailey.
Adore her.
Obsessed. Her Hello Dolly.
Everything.
Special.
Everything. Yeah, so more in that lane where I would want to do of telling someone's story. Yeah, in that realm. As opposed to like the musical version of...
Totally.
Love that so much. Okay. You play a massage therapist in Miranda July's indie Kajillionaire, a movie I loved, and you have to give Evan Rachel Wood a really awkward massage that involves some sort of like not touching at a certain point. Did you do research to make sure your massage looked accurate, or did you just wing it?
No. So Miranda July is a genius. That woman is a genius and has such a unique brain, and the way she thinks is out of this world. She's fabulous. Have you seen her, how she dresses?
Yeah.
It is the coolest.
Yeah.
She knows who she is and she stays true to it. And it is amazing. I crack up laughing every time I see that because I don't know who that person is. I say this because what was so interesting that she did, no lie, I want to say we did 75 takes.
Oh my God.
Maybe 60. But what was so genius about her is that she had 60 different choices. So therefore, I was like, you know what I mean? I'm a Gemini, so I don't know if Geminis assimilate with ADHD, but I'm like, what's next? What are we over here? But so for me, I was like, yes, I'll do it with one pinky up and I'll do it with like, she had it. So honestly, that's Miranda July. What you saw is Miranda July, like, in my body, doing it just like that. And it came out amazing, where I was like, oh, I love it. I have that now. Because she did that. And I'm so grateful for it because it's so cool, you know, that I have that. But I knew very early on, I said, oh, this lady's special. She's different. Just surrender, Davon. Completely surrender and absorb this experience. And the results paid off so amazingly.
You're so good in those scenes. And honestly, I think the movie is really underrated. I thought it was a excellent film.
Yeah, I love doing it.
Okay, you wear the aforementioned eye patch in the U.S. versus Billie Holiday, and towards the end of the movie, you also have like what Anne will call like a milky eye. I assume it's like a contact lens you were wearing.
Yeah.
Our question is, have you at this point in your career yet got to use fake teeth? An actress once told us that they are the way of the future in Hollywood. So,
yes, a little bit. It was, what they do is they take Invisalign. And so they'll take like what is Invisalign, right? The retainers. And so the artist will affect the Invisalign in whatever way they need to design it. And then you
pop it in like a bridge or something.
Mm-hmm.
What did you have to wear fake teeth for?
This movie that is coming up.
First fake teeth, baby's first fake teeth.
Yeah. So it's that's all it is. But I think the gentleman that did Bohemian Rhapsody takes the cake with the fake teeth. Like,
that's true. Yes.
I don't know how you talk with that.
That would be another thing, right? Like for me, that I'd be like, give it to me immediately.
Yeah.
Or I've done grills, and that's kind of like the same thing. Having like grills on your teeth, it's basically like a retainer. But the hardest part about it is that you don't want to have a lisp. And that's hard to do. That little whistle. So I'm like trying to be hard, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like whistling through my teeth.
Okay, Davine. Mm-hmm. You know, we're always looking for when our actresses are playing gay. You play gay on Hulu's Only Murders in the Building, which we loved. You even narrate your own episode where your character has this whole monologue about watching the Fox sitcom Herman's Head as a kid. Was this a show you had ever heard of, watched, or knew about, or did you have to Google this deep cut?
Yeah, I didn't know Herman's Head. I didn't know that. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna didn't know that one.
It was like the whole arc of the piece was around Herman's Head. We're like, okay, specific.
Da'Vine Joy Randolph, this has been a total pleasure. We're so excited for the movie, but also just like your career in general and the Pearl Bailey biopic that we are going to be there front row.
Thank you so much, guys. I so appreciate you.
One of my favorite parts of the interview, I mean, there were so many, but one of my favorite parts was when Da'Vine kept talking about her casita, and like how Brad Pitt was her neighbor and her casita. And like, I don't know why, but that word I always associate with Gina Kirschenheiser, who's one of the Real Housewives of Orange County, who like lost her big house in her first season and then was like living in what she kept calling a casita. And so like,
sounds very glamorous.
Yeah, it made me laugh so hard because I was just like, it was like a small like beachside, home.
It is interesting to think about her and Brad Pitt just like side by side on the beach. He's such a star on another level. I'm excited to see him, and also it like charms me that he decided to do this movie.
Because his friend Sandy called him a favor.
I love it. One of the things I loved, sometimes we have like old timey jargon, and I think Da'Vine was like doing an impression of someone at this point, but she said, "Gee Willikers." on the podcast. I was so charmed by it because it seems like something that I'm going to incorporate into my vernacular.
She was talking about how UK audiences could not handle her line reading, her throwing away Molly, you're in danger. So she was like, gee Willikers, you really wanted just the way it was in the film.
I am obsessed with the fact that people really needed to hear that line reading that way. It's horrendous.
It's so cool. I mean, it's like my worst nightmare is seeing a performance multiple times and being like, oh, literally every beat by beat is the same. And it's like some people just like want the thing from the movie.
Again, I just have to reiterate, watching her in The Last O.G. was just a revelation. And that story about Tracy Morgan, I was so glad that we brought it up because she really took him to another level. And Eddie Murphy was like, by the way, if you need an actor that's going to make you look incredible, get Da'Vine Joy Randolph.
I know. That was very cool.
We love Eddie Murphy here. I know that he is like...
He's controversial, but we love him.
He's sometimes a problem. And Lauren Weedman said that he was not nice on set, but he was nice to her. So, he's maybe a tough nut to crack. And I respect that he saw Da'Vine's talent and like went to bat for her. I think she's going to be a superstar.
Yeah, totally.
I think she'll be like nominated for an Oscar
for the Pearl Bailey movie.
We got to get that happening. Look, we are obviously not the people to write it or produce it, but we are going to put it into the ether and we're going to do whatever we can to make it happen because that has to happen.
Aaron Glick, you should be getting the rights to that and helping facilitate that for some up and coming writer.
Make it happen.
Because here are the cool things about Pearl Bailey. She started an all black version of Hello Dolly on Broadway. She replaced Carol Channing. They did or maybe they just did mounted a new production.
It was a new production, yeah.
There's an original cast album of that, but she would also like kick her shoes off and do like an encore after the show. It's just like beyond me. And then her and Carol Channing released this great concert together, which is phenomenal. I have it on DVD. I'm not going to send it to you, but I just want you to know it exists. Yeah, Pearl Bailey's very cool. And I was like, when Da'Vine said that, I was like, yes. I also was obsessed when she talked about an old woman Oscar voter being like, honey, I voted for you. You're going to win. And it made me laugh so hard because I was like, that must be a total mindfuck when you're like, this is my first like huge movie, high profile. I'm like the female lead and people are telling you this stuff and you're just like, I can't hear this, but also cool.
She really was so good in Dolemite. Like just, so good, so good. Please go watch every movie and TV show that we mentioned. We say it, but like, when we know. You know what I mean? Our listeners know when we are being like dead serious. Go watch her work. She is outrageously good. And Kajillionaire was one of my favorite things I've seen in ages. I really loved it. And it's streaming on HBO Max. Highly recommend. Here we are. It's that time of the show where it is time to connect this week's guest, Da'Vine Joy Randolph, to next week's guest. Damien, can you do that through a series of actorly connections for us?
Using no men?
No men, never men.
Sure, I sure can. It's going to be about 75 connections.
Great,
here we go.
That's the way I like it.
Da'Vine was in The United States vs. Billie Holiday with Natasha Lyonne, who was in the American Pie trilogy with Tara Reid, who was in The Last Sharknado with former guest of this show, Eileen Davidson. Eileen, of course, was on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which Garcelle Bouvet joined the cast of, and Garcelle was on NYPD Blue with former guest of this show, Amy Brenneman. Amy Brenneman was in Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her, my favorite, with Kathy Baker. Kathy Baker was on Picket Fences with Zelda Rubinstein, who was in Teen Witch with Mandy Ingber, also a former guest of this show. Mandy was in the original Broadway production of the Brighton Beach Memoirs with another former guest of this show, Joyce Van Patten. Joyce Van Patten was in the Broadway production of Jake's Women with another former guest of this show, Kate Burton. Kate Burton was in Big Trouble in Little China with future guest of this show, Kim Cattrall. Kim Cattrall was on the OG Sex and the City with Cynthia Nixon, who is currently starring in The Gilded Age as Vianne Cox with next week's guest. So just to be clear, I'll say it one more time. Cynthia Nixon is in The Gilded Age with next week's guest.
Oh my God. That was so satisfying on so many levels. I didn't know that you were going to go that deep. And incorporating Tara Reid into this is something that is very, very important.
I thought you'd like that.
I love her, and I really do hope we get her for the show someday. Future guest also Kim Cattrall, of course. Oh, next week's is really, really delicious, and I'm excited for you to get into it. All right, darlings, you know that the thing that you can do if you like what we're putting down that would help us the most is leave a 5-star review on the Apple Podcasts app. I know we're beating a dead horse over here, but I promise you, we try to keep this product free, but the thing that you can do that would be paying us handsomely would be giving us that 5-star review. It boosts us to the top of the algorithm, gets us in more people's headphones. And a couple of words will suffice, an actress's name, something that you loved, maybe Tara Reid. From this episode, if you want to say gee willikers to us, we'll understand what that means. Put it in writing in the 5-star review. We appreciate you so much.
Folks, if you want to hear about Ellen's very defined vegan jaw, once again being full of cheese and dairy, you got to follow us on social media so you can hear us talking about those things. You can find Anne at Rodemanne, and that's RODEMANNE. And you can find me at Damian Bellino, and we are those handles on all of the things.
Know Her From is produced by us, Damian Bellino and Anne Rodeman, and we want to thank our just incredibly thoughtful, kind, whip-smart consultants at Grumpy Entertainment. That's Jason Jude Hill and Daniel Sears. And every piece of editing that you hear on every episode, that's every single episode, 100, what are we at, 119, 120? Every episode is edited by Daniel Sears. We so appreciate all the fine work he does for us. Thank you, Daniel.
And hey, this is a shout out to Gang. Gang provides all of that music, underscoring each and every episode of You Might Know Her From. Gang is 3/4 women. Gang is from Philadelphia, and we love Gang. So please download and stream Gang wherever you listen to your music.
And if you want to see the hottest and the ugliest pictures of Matthew Lawrence that the internet can find, you're going to find those in the show notes. I put them at the bottom of each and every episode description. I spend a lot of time on it because it's important for me to catalog everything we talk about here.
So I saw Company on Thursday, and I was...
I know where you're going.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I don't think you do.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought you were going to talk about the fact that previous guest Patricia Richardson said that Patti LuPone didn't make eye contact with people for 3 months in Evita. But maybe you weren't going.
It is about Patti LuPone, don't worry.
Okay, great.
So I was like kind of at the stage door, not to be greeting any of the people, but it was like...
You're like, I wouldn't be caught dead at a stage door.
I wouldn't be. But I was with my friend Kathy, who is a magnet to it. And she was like, I got to take a photo with the marquee because like I have a friend who produced it. And I was like, okay, sure. I ran into a new friend who I had just met who was like there by himself. And then he was like, we have to send a picture to send to Brian because that's how we met. Anyway, so like Kathy's like, great, take a photo of me and Damien. I'll take a photo of you two. Anyway, Patti LuPone came out from the stage door, got in her car. She was wearing a bucket hat. Yes. And then they honked at Kathy to get out of the way. And it was incredible.